let me make a few brief observations on the topic. Not a specialist in China, but I'm watching America. America is watching China, so I'm watching China, and just to make a few set of observations in the bullet form. Number one, if I talk about the past, let me underline that the Chinese have been flexing their military muscle from the very beginning of the establishment of People's Republic of China and getting away with it. In the 1940s, there was a civil war, a very violent civil war, as Professor Swaran Singh said, unlike our freedom struggle based on non-violent approach. 100,000 American troops went to China to support the anti-Mao forces, did not indulge themselves in real combat, and then they came back, and China became communist. In the 1950s, there were 3 years of war in the Korean Peninsula. The entire direction of the war changed when China entered the Korean War, and the United States did not win the war. Then comes the war against against India in 1962. Again, the Chinese got away. They came, they bleeded us, and then they left. Then, of course, the Vietnam War. Everybody knows the United States lost the Vietnam War, partly because of what the Chinese were doing with North Vietnam and Ho Chi Minh forces. Then South China Sea, Paracel Islands, Spratly Islands, they went and captured. What happened? They continued to capture. Now they're building new islands by reclaiming lands in the waters of South China Sea. And then, of course, Vietnam in 1979. While attacking Vietnam in 1979, Deng Xiaoping goes to Washington and tells Bill Clinton, look, the way we taught a lesson to the Indians in 1962, we are going to do the same thing with the Vietnamese. They did, and they again got away with it for about 20 years, 2 decades, as the Americans were involved in fighting the war against terror, global terrorism. The Chinese were cleaning up in the international market. And by the time the Americans wake up and see that the Taliban is still in power, look at the Chinese economy has galloped. And whatever you are seeing today, it's all because of this past. How China managed its way very well. Now, second important point that we must learn from history. You know, we have signed so many agreements with China, beginning with the Panchshil, then of course 5 agreements in about 20 years, 1993 to 2013. Today, China does not abide by those agreements at all. They have thrown it into the dustbin. From here, learn how the Chinese act, even after signing the papers. Number 3, China, I think Ambassador Kantha very well brought this out, continues to support Pakistan and through BRI making inroads into India's immediate neighborhood. The so-called string of pearls is becoming a reality, and they don't want India to be part of NSG or the permanent member in the UN Security Council. Then, of course, backing Pakistan when we fight on issues like terrorism and all. So this is the Chinese past. It is going to continue into the future. Past, present, future, it's a continuum. And these kind of past performance of China is going to continue. Next observation is about the present. Now, let us understand India's strategy of economically engaging China, wishing that they will behave very well along the border and peacefully negotiate and resolve the border issue, it has failed. Our goal has failed, and it is very clear today. Number 2, many people on the television, even they're writing in the print media saying, war nahi hone wala hai. Both Indians and the Chinese know that they are not going to fight a war. Never say never. That is my understanding. Never say never. Who thought that Soviet Union would collapse? Who thought the Chinese would come and backstab in 1962? Who thought that in February 79, when Vajpayee would be there in Beijing, they would attack Vietnam? So it is always good to assume that there may be a war. In fact, there may be a war. And this time the war may be more dangerous than in the past. Now, the way the Chinese are behaving now, flexing their muscle all around, apparently, I feel they're pushing the Indians into the American lap. India wants to maintain a good relationship with all the major powers, but the way they're pushing India, India would have limited option other than to really build deterrence capability by teaming up with other countries, including the United States of America. My next point about the present thing, what India is not doing. There are so many countries troubled by China, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines. Are we really teaming up with them in any way? Are we engaging them diplomatically? I don't think so. We only talk about Russia, America, Moscow meeting, or some American official coming. Then we have Quad. Let us also get into the small countries. It is really important, and let's not, uh, ignore them. Now, the Quad has not been able to create a deterrence against China. This is very clear. Now, how to activate Quad is, of course, part of India's responsibility. We should not shy away from it. Having said that, in a minute or two, let me say some of the pet things that I keep on talking about the future. You know, the way Chinese economy has evolved, I would say that we have to do some study about capitalism with Chinese characteristics. Chinese talk about socialism with Chinese characteristics. I would urge our academic community to do research on capitalism with Chinese characteristics. A new imperialism is unfolding rapidly in world affairs. All those who studied imperialism, they know it's all industrialization and then the need for investing surplus capital outside, need for getting raw materials and the market abroad. That was a different kind of capitalism and imperialism. Today, when the Chinese are developing their BRI project and building bridges and ports and airports and railway lines and all, the Chinese money goes there, the Chinese technicians go there, Chinese engineers go there, everything Chinese. And the countries are becoming rentier state, just giving rent. All of us know very well what happened in Sri Lanka. Very soon the Maldivians are realizing that they are going the Sri Lankan way. About $1 billion they have taken a loan for a bridge. It is almost half of the GDP of Maldives. Now, of course, they're reaching out to India for help. But the Chinese kind of imperialism is a thing to watch and be aware, and if possible, prevent that. Number two, China began to talk about peaceful rise of China. Then people began to talk about assertive China. Anywhere you go, people use the word assertive China. China is asserting in South China Sea, along Sino-Indian border and blah, blah. I think we should use the word now, not assertive, but offensive China. If you understand what the Chinese are doing in the Senkaku Island and the South China Sea and along the border of India and even Nepal, even Bhutan, then China has gone on the offensive. Let's use the word offensive China, not assertive China at all. Now, finally, the future of Sino-Indian relationship is going to be shaped by 2 or 3 events. Number one, how the economy is going to take shape. Indian economy is going down, tremendously impacted negatively by the COVID-19. As the reports suggest, the Chinese economy is doing very well. I don't believe those reports at all, because you do not know what's going on in China. The Chinese government statistics is one thing, and independent analysis of what is happening in China is another thing. When the time comes and China really opens up again, then people will realize that yes, restaurants are open, people are not going to eat. Hotels are open, there are no occupants. Planes are flying, very limited number of passengers. And the Chinese government is saying we are doing very well now. The way the Chinese government was trying to balance their economy from investment driven to consumer driven, that has got a beating. That is why they're going back to, again, infrastructure spending. So manufacturing has gone up, but consumption has not gone up. But in case of India, it is going down, they're going up if we go by World Bank statistics and the IMF and OECD, etc., etc. So how we manage our economy and how they manage their economy, that is going to save the relationship. Whether the world is really going to get away from China as far as the supply chains are concerned, and Vietnam, India, Thailand, Philippines are going to be important areas where new kind of supply chains are going to be set up, that is going to impact China. Finally, of course, the US and Russia. These two powers are going to influence the shape of things to come. So India-China relationship will be impacted upon by the way we reach out to the United States and Moscow at the same time to create a new quote unquote equilibrium in the relationship. So these are my brief.